You said to me, Olivia, you have to decide, have your kids before your career or after. And and I thought as a woman who hadn't had kids yet, I said, that's ridiculous. I can do both. And
How old were you at the time when I said this?
oh gosh, I must
You
have
were,
been what, 24, 25,
no, I think you were like 27,
27.
something
Okay.
like
Well, it
that.
was before I had kids, so
Yes,
I was still young.
yes.
Not that I'm old now. It was before kids.
Hey,
It
I
was
mean,
way before I
talk about age. I'm still, no matter how old you are, I'm going to be much older.
Breaking rules is how we grow. No limits,
No,
no
it's been like 10 years, I think.
in 10 years.
I mean, we've talked a couple of times between them, but the last time I saw you, I want to say it was 2014,
Yeah, I think
something like
so.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hadn't had your kids yet, so yeah. How old
I
are you now?
How what?
How old are your kids?
My kids are 7 and 9 now.
Right.
Seven
So
and
I think it was
nine.
right before you had your first kid. Then last time I saw you,
Yeah, that's crazy.
it's
And
10 years. Yeah, maybe 2013 even.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're in Amsterdam now.
I live in Amsterdam. I've been here 9 years. I moved here in 2016, and yeah, it's just been one of those crazy things, after being in Silicon Valley for, what was it, 20, 21 years, I needed a break, and lots of reasons for that, but moved here to kind of like, it was either move here or move to Japan, one of the two, like go live someplace else for a little while. And yeah, so I was here for 3 or 4 years, working for Booking.com, trying to help them do some stuff, which they just not a technology company, so it was quite tough. And then as I left, it's in parted ways with them to figure out what I wanted to do next. COVID hit, and so I was already here. Lockdown started happening. Things were just happening around, and 1 year of COVID became two, two became three, and before I knew it, I'd now been here 9 years. But yeah,
Do you think you'll
living
stay?
right in the heart of Amsterdam. Given what's going on back in the States, probably everything everything looks insane back home from the news. And I've only been back a couple of times, but yeah, I think I'm gonna ride it out here for a little while. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you're one of those people in my life who have been a mentor for a really long time to me,
Oh, cool.
and you may or may don't know that.
Well, I mentored you for formally for like what, 6 months, something like that.
Yeah.
Back when you were just joining Airbnb or just left Airbnb, I forget.
I think it was it?
Think
Well, I remember I interviewed at Pinterest, and that was before I think I joined Airbnb.
you were about to join Airbnb is what I think it was. You were in train. You were, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's what I. That's part I do remember. But yes, that was
And I remember you,
the formal part.
we had this conversation in a coffee shop, and
Oh
you
yeah, I
told me,
remember that. Yeah, I remember that conversation. You're not the only female designer I've had that conversation with, so it's always one of those conversations where I even preface it like, okay, I might say something that you may not like, but I'm going to say it anyway just to take it because it's a controversial opinion, and I guess, and I actually don't think it's that controversial, but yeah, you can tell that story, but yeah.
I mean, after when I heard it from you, it felt controversial, and so I'll fill everyone in. Is that
Go
when
ahead.
we were sitting in this coffee shop, you said to me, Olivia, you have to decide, have your kids before your career or after. And I thought as a woman who hadn't had kids yet, I said, that's ridiculous. I can do both. And
How old were you at the time when I said this?
oh gosh, I must
You
have
were,
been what, 24, 25,
no, I think you were like 27,
27.
something
Okay.
like
Well, it
that.
was before I had kids, so
Yes,
I was still young.
yes.
Not that I'm old now. It was before kids.
Hey,
It
I
was
mean,
way before I
talk about age. I'm still, no matter how old you are, I'm going to be much older.
but I think that there was this realization after I had my kids of understanding what you meant,
Hmm.
and that, doing both at the same time is mayhem. And it's
Yeah.
really, really hard.
So to be
As a,
clear,
yeah.
exactly, that's the thing I said. Is like I didn't say it was impossible, and that's usually what happens is when you give this advice. Because I give different advice to other designers as well too, but the what comes out of it is the part you don't want to hear, and you turn that into what I said, which is that it was impossible. I didn't say it was impossible. I said it was really hard. And that's the part that's tough. It's like, and I think women don't, especially, give credence to that it's really difficult for you. I mean, there's the natural pieces. There's all kinds of just, the physical aspects of being a mother, like, the hormones and the needing to be up at night in ways that, are unfair, but that's what happens. And there's a reason why, humanity in the past had communities of people, because raising kids is extraordinarily energy draining, extraordinarily. So it wasn't that you couldn't do it. It was just, like I said, I think the advice I always give is, like, if you're younger. So I had my daughter when I was 22. So Alexa, I was very young, and I got 4 hours of sleep, and her mother got less. So it was like this kind of things. But I was young, and I could just barrel through because of all the energy going on in my body. And then if you're older, it usually means you've got money. So it wasn't like to be at the end of your career, but it's like much further along in your career that you can have money to actually help you get through it. But also because the really key part, I think this is the part that's controversial, is that when women have their kids between the ages of, like, 27, 28 to 34, you do it at a point in time where your career is about to take off because you're officially an adult. And all you do is you make it 1,000 times harder for yourself. And that's not fair. It's not right. Our corporate systems and all of our capitalistic, systems are not set up to handle families. It's like, you got a family, tough noogies, like, too bad. And that's the problem. Now, if we had a system or a society where it was more fair, then I wouldn't give the advice. But the truth of the matter is that women have it really hard at the point in time where, if they really want to dive into their career, you just make it even more difficult than it already is.
Yeah.
And it's not like your fault. It's not like you're to blame. That's just like what happens. And if you have a really good partner, really good husband, and you have a support structure, you make it easy. But even with that, it's really hard. it's just hard. And so the advice is, like, do it when you're young, because you have all this energy. You just barrel through, for better or worse. Who knows if that's better or worse? Or if you do it later in your career or later on, usually your career you've gotten to a point where you can withstand certain things, and you have money, or you have things that allow you to ease that transition. So it comes out controversial, and it's not intended to be. I don't intend to be like, I'm trying to say, like, oh, you can't be who you want to be, blah blah blah. I'm just like, I had kids when I was young, and it was really hard when I was young. so anyway, that's a long-winded explanation of that for everybody who's listening. It's like, I did say this, and I remember your face. You were kind of like annoyed with me, but at the same time you were like, I don't know. And I just kind of said, it's like, it's just my advice. I'm just letting you know. Just be careful.
When you're young, sometimes you hear advice and you don't want to know it almost. You can't fully take it in because you're like, that's something I don't even want to. I'm like, I can do both. I was like, to be fair, I did do both, but it was really hard. Like you said, like I stepped out of my career after having my kids. And when I say I stepped out, I didn't like take away, I was still working, but I wasn't advancing my career in any way. I was it was like on pause. It was like, it was the second thing. My kids were the primary thing. Like as it
probably should be.
Yeah.
Right? That's the priorities that you actually do want, right?
Yeah. I think that someone's got to take that on as the family. Either, like in my family, it was me because I wanted that position between me and my husband. Like it's what I wanted. I wanted to be the one who left when the kids were sick from the office. I wanted to be the one taking them to the dentist appointments and the doctor's appointments. Like, it was something that I wanted to be the nurturer. So I think between the two of us, it was something that we had conversations about, but I didn't realize the impact to my career long term, the trade-off that I made. I think I didn't do it knowing the trade-off. But sitting on the other side of it now, like having this conversation with you, like I've built, I left Airbnb because I felt overwhelmed and I couldn't build the career that I wanted and be the mom that I wanted. And for me, Babco allows me to have both in a way where I have the space and time to be the mom I want, because I own a lot more of my own time. But I also get to feel like I'm doing something worthy of the skill sets that I have.
Right.
Right? Because as a mom, if I would go home and there's so many things, obviously, as stay-at-home mom you get to do. But for me, it didn't fulfill that need of like sharing this thing I'm doing. Like I'm such a amazing designer and artist. And if I don't get to share that with the world, I feel like something's missing. But
Right.
at the same time, if I don't be the mom that I need to be, I also feel like something's missing. And I don't think it's fair that I would have to get to choose. So I want to do both.
Yes, exactly. So the point is that you can do both. I mean, I think you've proven that. The other thing that I'd love to hear your take on this now after having gone through it is like, what would you say? What would you say in place of me to yourself? Like, I'd love to hear what your version of what I said is, because my version is also of a certain point of view. And the other part that I think that's probably things that I reflect on and look back as I've given advice and try to evolve things that I say is enough has changed that more things become possible. Whereas to your point, or the thing that you just said a second ago, in a corporate environment like an Airbnb or a big company or anything from like a medium business that's going bigger, especially even in startups, especially in tech, the environment is so competitive and so difficult that the corporation doesn't care to or cater to you. It has to cater to being competitive in the market for whatever reason that they believe that they're doing. And it's not set up in a way that allows you to deal with it. But you have tools if you decide to say, I don't want to do that, but I want to do my own thing, like a Babco or whatever. You have tools these days that actually I think it make it more possible than it was even like, 20, 30, definitely more than like 40 or 50 years ago for women in your situation. And that's probably, I think, one of the more important pieces to consider is that the tools are there now. Everything from the way software works or licensed, or how you can build businesses, how you can market things, how you can put yourself on out there with someone like yourself who's creative, can actually make the things that they want to make and build the brand that they want to build. Like all of that's even more possible than it was if you had to send out like typesetting back in the 60s to an expensive like printing shop to deal with the things that you wanted to. And that's like a minor detail, but that's something I would love to hear how you would consider that, because I haven't heard the story since. But anyway, This is your show. I don't want to. you tell me how we're going to do this.
Great. No, I think that what I would say to myself back then is that think about the future a little bit more about who you want to be in terms of the mom you want to be, the wife you want to be, the career that you want to have. And hold those things so true and keep those standards very clear, but figure out how to do it without the overwhelm and without the anxiety. Because I think that part of doing it all is that you constantly feel overwhelmed. You constantly feel like you're giving these trade-offs. And if you pick the world where you're going to do both, just be mindfully picking it because it'll be easier to go through it. Because like for me, like I stepped out of my career, but I didn't know I was doing that. I just thought I was doing everything. I wasn't consciously making that decision. I consciously made the decision to choose my children, but I didn't consciously make the decision that my career would take a step back in some ways while I did that. So I would tell myself to plan for the version of you that you want to be in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years, and kind of map up to that in some ways. And be patient with yourself and have kindness and compassion for yourself because it's not going to be easy. With anything that's worth doing, it's not going to be easy. Even if you take the path of a stay-at-home mom, for example, that path is also not easy.
Yeah, exactly. I think the thing I hearing you say, and you can tell me if this is in line with what you're saying too, is that being mindful, being purposeful is actually a kindness. When people think that they're being too specific or they think that they're making, I don't know what the word is, but I see people sometimes not be, I don't know what the word is, not be specific about what they want to be. They don't look, I look at my career, I usually, instead of doing the 10-20, I always do every like 5 years. I'm always like trying to think 5 years out, like where do I want to do next or where do I want to be next? But I tend to be fairly specific about the direction that I'm going in. And being specific means that I don't want to do this, or I don't want to go these other directions. And that is a kindness to yourself. You're not like taking things away from yourself. You're not being mean to yourself by being rigorous. You're actually being kind to yourself, because as you go through it, to your point, if you don't do that, you can let yourself get overwhelmed and get anxiety, and that's unhealthy, and all kinds of bad things happen when you're not like super like this is what I want to do, this is how I want to be in the world. And that's what I'm hearing you say, and I would agree with that if that is kind of like where you're going with that.
Yeah, I think
you were also very good. You were always very good though with vision. You as a designer, you were always one of those designers who had vision, and I think that helps a lot. So having a vision is definitely key to the things you just said. So
I think design thinking. Thank you. Looking back, I really wish I could go back and just say like to myself to have kindness, because I felt overwhelmed during the process. But I look back and my kids are 7 and 9 now, and I'm like, I missed some magic. Like I had a lot of magic, in raising them, but I think I lost some of it in feeling like this pressure to do it all without making the decision of like, it's okay in this space and time. Like I'm going to take these 5 years and like, it's going to be what it is and it's okay. Versus after 5 years, I was like, oh my God, I woke up and I was like, I don't think I got promoted. Like, and I was so mad, so there was a lot of anger in me after the realization of stepping out. I was like, I stepped out to raise my kids and I don't get anything on the other side of my career. That's not fair.
Yeah, it's tough.
That's how I felt.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like partly that's it's understandable why you felt the way. Like I said before, partly it's because the way the system is designed.
Yeah.
If the corporate system is not designed for, all the companies say that we're one big happy family. We're here to take care of you. HR is there to make your life at the office better. It's like, no. It's a corporation. It's intended to do things a certain way, and that's the game we all play in the United States. Not so much in the rest of the world, and there's pros and cons of that. Like, here in Europe, it's slightly different. Not slightly, it's quite a bit different. But yeah, you can't regret anything though. At the same time, your kids are still very young. There's so much that's going to be happening coming up. I mean, if you think there's a lot of magic in the early years, it just keeps more and more and more. That part doesn't stop. So,
what advice do you want to give me now? What would you tell me now?
I'm not the best person on the older kids. So my daughter was raised by her mother because we separated when we were early in our marriage. So I only got to see my daughter during summers when she would fly to come stay with me in the summer. So she would stay with me roughly, 6 weeks to 3 months every year for the summer, starting in like 6th grade. But before then, she lived in California, so we would share time and whatnot through her elementary school years, through most of them, up until 4th or 5th grade, I forget. Having said that, I think the hardest thing as a parent to navigate, and the most fun, in my opinion, is how your kids become people, how they become like their own people and their own human adult kind of thing. I'm going to relay the story. If Alexa gets mad at me, then it's just too bad. But one time in the summer, this is what I mean by this. Is like I find it fun, and I don't know if other people did, but I found it fun watching her become an adult and watching her become a person. But she must have been, I think, I don't know, 8th grade, 9th grade, something like that, in just about to start high school. And she was stay with me in Sunnyvale for the summer. And I had come back from doing something on the job, and I walked into the house, and she had a laptop that I bought her, an Apple laptop that I bought her, that I told her she had to make last 4 years because I was not buying her a computer every year. Wasn't doing that. She had a laptop open, and she had her flip phone or a phone out. Something else like an iPad or an early iPad or something like that. and the Gilmore Girls on TV. This is like her on the couch, got all this stuff, watching TV. She's doing all these things. And on her laptop, she's got like Facebook open. And she's like doing all the Facebook things. This is like, I don't know, 2008, 2009, I forget, 2007. I can't remember. It was early on. Anyway, I walked in and I'm like, hey, how's it going? She's like, hey, Dad. And I'm just like looking at the scene like, what the hell have I done? I've like, this person has become this like geek tech person who's got like 10,000 things, stimulating their brain at the same time. Anyway, I looked over her shoulder. I'm like, oh, you've got Facebook open. And she stopped and she goes, yeah. And I'm like, oh, well, I've got a Facebook account. You should friend me on Facebook at some point. That way we can actually talk every now and then while you're back in Milwaukee. And she just like paused and she kind of looked at me. Like, this whole scene is like in my living room. She's like, you're on Facebook, Dad? And I'm like, I fucking work with the people who made Facebook. What are you talking about? Like, I'm like an original nerd here. I didn't say this to her, but in my brain, I'm just like going, what do you mean am I on Facebook? I'm like a tech. I'm in Silicon Valley. This is what I do. And I'm like, yeah, I'm on Facebook. Make sure you friend me. I want to see what you're doing. I got to go make dinner, blah, blah. And I walked out. 2 days later, she figured out all the settings and then got me. So she friended me, but I could not see all the things that I needed to see. So she was this one. So I was watching this person navigate being an adult with me. But first off, it's like, this whole kind of like just moment of, you're on Facebook? Yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm a person too. And like, you're a person, like, let's message me. But then to watch her actually kind of deduce and figure out how like to do this, I was both annoyed, but I was also very proud that she figured out all the settings so that she could friend me on Facebook, but I would not see all the crazy stuff that she was clearly doing with her friends on Facebook. Those are the kinds of things I found fun, like watching these people, watching this little person kind of navigate and like scheme and like, oh, I got to do this with my dad. Blah, blah, blah. How am I going to do this so I can like not be, I can still be cool or whatever that is. But that's the stuff I find fun. And that's like, starting at like 10, 11, all the way up and through to college. You get all these like little moments of like, they're actually a person. They're not just your kids. And they're not necessarily going to do what you ask all the time.
I mean, if they do what we asked all the time, I'm not sure. Like what would that they wouldn't be as interesting, right?
But that's my point. It's like they're becoming people. And I find that is the most fascinating part of having your kids grow up is when they start to become people. And then at the same time, like, taking them to concerts, like, as soon as you can start taking to concerts or going to gigs and things like that, the ones that they'll not be embarrassed to go with you with, kind of thing. But all of that stuff I found fun. So anyway,
I am excited for that phase as well. And I
are you?
I'm excited and nervous because the
There you go.
the girls have I just can't even, I don't even want to imagine it. But my daughter is something else. I mean, but it's the cleverness, the wittiness, the interesting stories, the interesting phrases and things they come up with is just, It's a highlight. It's a highlight. But tell me what you've been up to. I mean, in the last decade.
So much. I mean, I'm at the point in my career where I've been trying to figure out like literally what I want. What can I do that's going to be bigger than everything I've done so far, which is a particular character flaw that I seem to have. So I've been building something called Selden. I've spent the past 2 years building the company, had some success doing certain things, and then some not success in the middle of this year. And I've been spending the past 6 months reworking the thing so I can actually kind of unleash it on the world in a way that makes sense. It's like an AI-driven creative design tool kind of piece. It's been interesting on my side, like to the point of like advice and things like that. Going in and trying to raise money, or going in and raising money, getting investors and building a company, I've always been on the side with. So I've always helped people do that, and I've always been part of their company to do that. I've never done it myself specifically, and part of it is exciting and fun, and part of it is just like, all right, this is not the person I want to be, quite frankly. So I've been struggling and trying to figure out those things. But basically, I'm building a new design tool, and if all goes the way that I think it is, it'll hopefully be as impactful as what Figma was when I helped Dylan and Evan get Figma off the ground and worked on the Creative Suite back in the day, helping design Photoshop and Illustrator. This is the kind of stuff I've been living and breathing my entire life, and so for better or worse, it's what I'm pretty good at, and I'm building that. So hopefully in the next month or two, I'll have some posts and some news about what I'm doing with it. and hopefully it'll be good. I think there's a lot of change about to happen, and also for better or worse, I've been part of tools that have caused change and made change. And this time around, I want to try to do it with the community of designers on the planet. I don't want to just kind of do it for a corporation. And we'll see how that goes. It's all very mysterious. I apologize.
I will say, though, I think that designers building the tools is what we need, right? Like, especially with AI, because you can build a design tool with AI, but if you don't understand design, it won't be done well. So I'm excited about what you're building.
Yeah, so there's multiple parts about what I'm building. I can explain it to you if you want to. I don't know if this is boring or not.
Yeah, please, yeah.
Well, so it's going to be an open source project, and I'm still working out the details. But I was building a product called Selden that was a component-based AI-driven kind of design tool. What I've kind of figured out during the process, especially in the last 3 months where I've been recoding it myself using AI coding tools to help me do that, is to the degree that the pieces I think will help shape things. So let me just give you a sense of what it is. There's 4 major pieces to it. So the first piece is just called like the core engine. It's a component-based model, and it's effectively a workspace. So what that is it's a schema-based file format, and a file format that's kind of just data-driven, where everything is designed as components that have all kinds of pieces, icons and theming and atomic levels of hierarchy, all kinds of stuff. But they're not components from the point of view of actually living in a product just yet, but they're components in the way that you would design them or build them. So think like to-do lists and like calendars or scrolling lists or, product pages, etc. These all have components. So that thing is built in such a way that all of the actions that you can do there's a workspace and there's a component system, and the workspace is your project and the component system is how the components are defined. That whole part is built in such a way that you can process the workspace however you want to. So if you had a workspace, like a Selden.json, file, whatever we want to call that, you could have any code that you want to process that workspace and do what you want with it. In the workspace are all these actions that do all these things like add, remove, duplicate, all this other kind of stuff, which are also then hooked up into, I'll be hooking those up into an MCP server, but also can be hooked up to any AI agent that you want to have. So you can have an agent process the workspace without using anything else. You can just do it on its own, just manipulating data. That's the first piece. The second piece is what I call the factory. And the factory is a system that processes the workspace and spits out components that are useful in React. They'll also be able to build out to things like Swift or Java, so Android and iOS, and probably Vue and whatever system people want it to do. I'm only doing React to start because React is one of the easiest things to do as well as one of the hardest things to do. And it's easy to do from the point of view of support and how many people use React and it's the web. It's the hardest because the way the web components work and the way the web works itself is a pain in the butt. We've all known that, like the way CSS and HTML and JSX and systems and all these things are all just kind of crazy, but whatever. So the factory processes components. The third piece is what I call the editor. And the editor is a web-based app that we've built and I'm manipulating that literally allows you to do like drawing and building of components. It's not going to be out of the gate as rich as something like a Figma or other tools out there that do this yet because I need to get further along with it. But it's an editor that by open sourcing it, to your point, anybody who wants to hack on this thing can hack on this editor and contribute back to it. And that way, designers, if they want to add their own features to the editor, they can do so. And then the fourth piece is the AI part. And so the AI part I've built as a separate service. We built as a separate service purposefully. It's not integrated in. So that way we can attach the AI to Selden in the same way that anybody can attach their own AI agent into Selden. So I'm making sure I'm not gaming the system by making our AI have special commands and things like that. Everything that can be done across the board. The fifth piece is not really going to be open source. The fifth piece is going to be a hosted version of all this, so that if somebody doesn't have the technical skills to do a build and make an app and do all that kind of thing, I'm going to probably charge something very, very small. I've got some ideas in mind about how much to charge for individuals, such that it's really easy to do. And whatever changes in cycles coming from the open source part of it will get funneled back into the hosted version of it, and then that'll be used by everybody. So like right now, this is, you can't quote me on this. I know I'm on the record here in some degree, but right now my thinking is like $100 a year to basically to let people to use this app, use the editor, as opposed to like all the stuff you're paying for either Adobe or even Figma. I'm even thinking about like, a one-time fee of $500 gives you a lifetime license to it, just like the old days when we bought software in a box. So I'm thinking about that.
I remember those.
I'm thinking about that. And on top of it, the hosted version will have the MCP server. So if any startup company, like if you had for Babco, if you wanted to start using it to do things, the way the model works is that all of the AI and the MCP and the processing, so like exporting to GitHub, connections to GitHub, Clerk, all these other kinds of like login, account security, all that kind of stuff, you would pay for. And I'm probably just going to do something simple, like charge a license fee per number of users or per revenue model. I don't know yet for startups to make it easy for them to just go in. But ultimately, the open source part of it, the first 4 parts that are open sourced are there so that we can all do this. And I'm trying to literally flatten it, because if you look at AI tools and the way that they work right now, from the way Lovable works or the way Cloud and all the Google stuff works, all these tools are using things like Tailwind. And Tailwind is like, I get why people like it. I am not a fan of Tailwind. I think it's the most wonky, janky thing I've ever used in my life. But I get why people use it. It's fast, it's iterable, but it's not systemic, in my opinion. You have to try to make a system out of it. And when you do that, you're in the world of building components. However, one of the reasons why AI is working so well is that it can use things like Tailwind or Radix or whatever easily to get that first like dopamine hit. Like, oh, this worked. I got this thing there. But then to your point, as you get into it, it's like it starts screwing everything up. There's no structure. It doesn't see like connections and all these other kind of pieces. And that's also because there's no systemic version out there, like a design kit maker that works. So one of the things I was trying to impart on investors is that one of the reasons why AI has done so well with things like React out of the gate is because React was a structured system on top of JavaScript. More so, TypeScript became even more structure on JavaScript. So you got React and TypeScript really providing structure, the way you define constants properly or classes and all kinds of things and frameworks and pieces that are built. In the design world, we don't have any of that. We have people like talking about design systems, making design kits, but we don't have any formal, like, how do you code these things in a way that makes any sense in a structured way so that designers can do what they want in the same way that an engineer can pull out React systems and pieces and build a React app. So Selden, the first part of it, that core piece, is my attempt at providing that. And I want people on the planet to participate in that. If we all participate in it, 2 things can happen. One is I'm gonna open the genie to have big corporations, probably some in China that I wouldn't want them doing things that I don't want, but they'll be able to see how all this is built. And but you open the genie up and they have access to something that'll make their tools even better. Because right now they're all using tools from the design side that aren't really good for structure and how design as a system works in a product. And at the same time, though, I'm going to be making it available to everybody else for cheap. Taking the model that if a lot of people use it, then the number of people will make the business that I'm building work. The best way I can relate to this is that I went through the desktop publishing phase when I was young. So one of the things that the desktop publishing piece did in the late 80s and the early 90s is it blew open the way publishing worked, right? Things became digital. Suddenly, anybody can make a magazine. There was newsletters all over the place. There was all this bad design all over the place. However, you can go back and look at the story. It also allowed scrappy teams to build magazines and do magazines. So one of the magazines that came out in the early 90s was Entertainment Weekly. And Entertainment Weekly was one of the first magazines that was on a weekly schedule that was able to do a weekly schedule with a team of, I think, less than 20 people for the magazine, because they were using PageMaker, Illustrator, freehand. They had access to these digital tools, and they got a process and a flow going that they didn't need to have like the big staff that Vogue had or the big staff that Rolling Stone had. They could actually do it with smaller teams. My point is that by opening this kind of stuff up to the world, I am actually hoping that, yes, I give access to the bigger ones that are going to be able to potentially abuse it in ways that I don't want them to abuse it. But if everybody else can start to break off and do their own things, well, you can have people competing against, Google and OpenAI and Anthropic and even Lovable and all those other ones. These companies have gotten really big really fast. I'm hoping that you'll find high school students in Kenya being able to build companies, because now they'll have access to the same tools that the people doing the big stuff will have access to. So it's going to be a crazy thing, but that's what I'm building. I'm building out all these pieces that are how to get this stuff so that as AI is going to evolve, I'm going to provide AI the thing I think it's missing in the design world, which is structured design systems and structured design kits and how that stuff works. I have our own AI working on it. You'll be able to train models on it. And also, when you get these things working better, they're less expensive because they make less mistakes. There's more structure. So as we get more content put into it, then you'll have AI models hopefully trained on design systems and how design thinking actually works in a structural way. And then, and we'll see how that goes. It's one of those things where I'm not 100% confident this is the right direction to go. But given what I'm seeing and the crazy money and the crazy things that people are doing, and knowing that this is going to change things regardless of whether we like it or not, I'm kind of the opinion that this is the best chance for me to give back in a way that can go forward. I think Figma is the last company of its kind. I don't think we're going to see that again. And I'm not 100% convinced on the message and the journey that I'm seeing, the Lovables and the Repletes and the Anthropics, especially OpenAI. I'm not convinced on, having done Twitter, I'm not, having seen that go through, I'm not convinced on that they have their shit together in a way that's going to be useful. So one of the things I can do is that even though I can provide the tools that these big companies would use, I can make it so that anybody who wants to have a go at it can also attack it as well. So that way, even though things are changing underneath them, they will have the same arsenal of tools that the bigger ones will have as well. And in that world, I'm hoping that the scrappiness of entrepreneurs and younger designers and will have an influence on the reshaping of what this job is going to become, because the job is going to become completely different in the next 5 to 10 years. Sorry, that was a long one. You know me, Olivia. I speak way too much about things.
It was good. I think I'm curious what you see in the future for the design role. What you said it will be different. Like, what do you see?
Well, I've written about this about 2 or 3 years ago, which is what we kickstarted Sullivan for me. I believe the role is going to split into 2 with a very thin piece in the middle. So what I mean by that is, if you look at design as a general crew, and I've managed designers, I managed teams at Twitter, Yahoo, Adobe. I've been in the trenches, I've been in the executive room, all that kind of stuff. In general, if you look at designers tend to have strong instincts in one of 3 ways. But the majority of designers will split into 2 of them. So the first one, I believe, is the business side. So there'll be designers who are more brand oriented, more messaging oriented, more business, and have a vision kind of like how to build products in a company, in a market, as well as how audiences listen to. There's this whole kind of business acumen that some designers have. I think you probably fall into that bucket, and there's some other ones that I know that fall into that bucket. And so these designers will be more like a blend of designer, product manager, business person, executive type kind of person. They'll be less in a Figma or a Photoshop or whatever, drawing rectangles, and more in a more of a strategic and tactical sense, in a vision sense. Then there are the designers that we all know that are more research and empathetic and customer driven, like the user-centered kinds of folks. The ones that are concerned about the impact of the product on people's psyche, or how it works in the world, or what people are actually trying to get at. What do they want? How are we delivering the right thing to them? So I tend to believe that they're going to become more UX research-oriented types of designers, effectively. So the majority of teams will have this kind of split where you'll see some designers go more business and some designers go more research and experience style related. Then there's the ones in the middle who will become a very thin sliver, and I consider myself one of these ones in the middle that is a thin sliver. These are the folks that we're tinkerers, I call them design engineering, but we're the ones that are actually concerned with the intricacies of all the stupid details that go into making this stuff work, because there's a lot of details. And there's so many details that there's really not time to do the other two things. And so these designers will become, in a sense, I remember I brought up the desktop publishing example. Well, during the desktop publishing revolution, you had this switch into digital typography. So you had typographers who had to make that switch as well too. So in the design sense, those designers that became typographers, like Adobe hired a bunch of them to make Adobe fonts. And then Linotype and all the other companies also had typographers on board that became craftspeople effectively for type. And that's still the case. There are a very small amount of, and by small I mean like less than 10,000 people, I think, who are typographers who make all these great fonts that we use in the design sense. In our sense, in the digital product design space, there are going to be people who design the components and they design all the actual working. So it's not just like the drawing of the rectangles. It's like, okay, how does all this design stuff work and become living, breathing things and manipulatable objects and all that kind of stuff? Because there's a lot of details that go into making all that work. And that's what I'm doing with Seldon. I'm trying to build tools that allow that to happen for people who are doing that. But with those pieces, in the same way that you would use a font to pick fonts and then figure out your message, you're going to have lots of components, lots of artifacts that these business folks or the research folks can use to build more of what they're interested in on their side. So I think our job is going to split into three, where it's one or the other, but the middle one is going to be, I think the middle one is where some folks believe their job is. And I tend to believe that if you really have to ask yourself, like, do you have the patience to design a font? Because you have to do all of the characters, not just the fun ones, but like all of them to the level of craftsmanship at all sizes and all these things and all the ligatures and all the Unicode. There's all this annoying stuff that goes into making a font, but like, there are people who do that. So that's where I believe the job is going. And AI is going to enable that to happen. And all that middle murky stuff that we've all argued about for so long, whether design is about the aesthetics and the visuals or whether design is about the experience, is actually going to bifurcate, finally, because the AI will do all that production stuff in the middle that, quite frankly, is not a skill that we need to be paying for. We don't need designers to be drawing the boxes anymore. That's kind of like a waste of money and a waste of time. We do need people worrying about the vision and the branding and the messaging and all that kind of stuff and how the product and the company's ethos is all with. And we do need people worrying about, like, is this working? Is this successful? Is it satisfying the thing it's trying to do? Are people happy with it? Not just happy with it, but is it actually working to make their lives better? And then there's the people like me who are going to be making the guitars. I'll be making the guitar. I'm the guitar maker. And I'll make it so that all you guys can play music. But I like the stupid little, like, what knob is there and how does it turn and what kind of wood is this and how does this different kind of wood resonate with the notes and all that stupid stuff. That's where I believe it's going, is those three things. What do you think? You're doing AI stuff too right now. So where do you see it going, if I may ask?
I agree with the sentiment that designers will be leading the vision, but I think that, like, we've already moved into that realm. Like, I think that it's very strong that I think that as design becomes more open to more people, as you said, like, smaller, someone in Kenya can now, some small, like, student in Kenya can make a whole brand and a whole company. Like, we're moving into that, and I think we already have. So I think the designer's job is going to be differentiation and planning. And I think that it's going to be really, really important to have that capability, because as everyone is able to make more things to stand out, you have to think about how to stand out. And that's strategy and that's vision. And so I think that those skill sets are going to be even more valued in the future. And if not, they already are. I already noticed this in the market when people come to us and what they're asking for. But the amount of things that we can create now is so much grander. There's so many more things and capabilities we can do with AI and faster. So I think that the thing that I imagine you're building is going to help us do things even faster. So we're going to be able to produce even more things
at production level quality. That's the faster part I'm not interested in. I agree, we'll help it make it faster. The part I'm interested in is making it high quality. Like, it can be used. That's the part that is for me, that's the part that's missing. But yeah.
Yeah, I think there's I'm curious what you think about the trade-off between having a very structured component system versus thinking through things that are kind of a new version of using an interface. So how do we continue? Maybe that's part of the open source component that you're building, but like, how do we ensure that we're not locked into the system in a way that doesn't allow for innovation?
Yeah, so part of that, when I open source the project, it'll become more clear. But when I talk about components, so of the four pieces, the one piece that's the components in the workspace. The workspace is not the design of the product. The workspace is the design of the individual letters. Like again, if you open up a program like Fontographer in the past, you would see letter A, B, C, D. Like you have all the letters, and then the designers are adjusting them and doing all these things to them. But Fontographer is not PageMaker. Fontographer was how do you design the letters. And so what I'm building with Selden is how do you build the components. So the workspace is the components. Excuse me. In the components, what a lot of people miss when they're doing design kits and design systems is that there's three pieces, and this especially the front-end engineers, I think hopefully this will resonate with as well too. There are three things that are going on to get from the components into a produced product. The first piece is what the designers like to fiddle with. Color, fonts, icons, shape, spacing. These are like this kind of like core design pieces. In Selden, there's the icons, the type, and then what I call themes. And the themes are like all the spacing and all those other kinds of things and whatnot. So that's like this core level underneath everything. That's like the beginnings of how you deal with that. That part's the most straightforward part, quite frankly, and it's also the most pain in the butt part to build, but it's there. I've even got it now, so like when you do the themes, you can also export the themes as like CSS variables, so you can use them as tokens, in the same way that people are using Tailwind tokens. So you're not locked in that everything has to be designed in Selden. You can actually have all this stuff that the AI can build as well too. The second layer is then what I would call like the structural function of the component. This is largely just the scaffolding of the boxes and the layouts, the controls, all that kind of stuff. It's not like alive. It's just the scaffolding. That piece in the middle is a little bit like an HTML file. HTML files are the structure. And then there's the third part, which is the controller, the part that makes the component come alive. And a lot of people, when they make this mistake trying to do component systems, is they blend all three together. And it's really, really difficult. What you want is you want each to have its own distinct thing, such that when you have like a calendar, the calendar can swap different themes with like the layout, all that kind of stuff. So the thing at the base can be swapped out so that the structural part of the calendar works. However, the calendar may need to be a sales calendar versus a personal to-do calendar. That's the controller at the top that then is manipulating the scaffolding and presenting it in different ways. And if you don't blend them, you can actually make the controller part on its own. The controller part is the hard part. That's the hard part of all of this. And that's the part I think will evolve over the next 5 to 10 years in what I'm building. The part that's going to be easy is the first two, and that's the part I'm getting out as fast as possible. Because to your point, if you have a calendar, well, how does a calendar look inside of VR goggles versus how does it look on a fridge versus how does it look on my iPad versus how does it look on my watch versus all that kind of stuff. If you put all these things together, it becomes very, very difficult to deal with. And there are some people who just believe that you'll just make individual versions with AI that are all disconnected because it's just easy to do. But that's very sloppy. It's very wasteful. We already can see how much energy this is all stuff is using. It's not, and at the end of the day, there's no versioning and fixing of things. Like debugging that kind of stuff is brutally difficult. And it's just easier to just do the tedium to get it done right and then have the AI manipulate the pieces. So the large part is to say is that the controller part is what I think is going to be the thing that provides uniqueness and behavior and flow and all that stuff. If you don't bake that into the scaffolding, you can swap out different scaffoldings for the controller, or you can swap out different like themes and tokens across the bottom for the styling and things like that. And then the three of them, instantaneously, you pick how this works. That becomes like a component. I was asked this question by somebody who I'm not going to name because he's somebody I respect, and his question to me was like, "This is all going away, Andre." And I'm like, I don't know about that. And what I responded to him is like, even if AI does the things that we believe it's going to do, that's super futuristic, where we just talk to things and things just happen. I don't want to talk to something all the time. Right now I'm in Claude and I type and I have to I've read more. I used to have to read like patent papers every now and then. I've read more text about what the hell the code is doing doing this like vibe coding thing that I've ever wanted to in my life. It fucking blows. It's really annoying. Sorry if you have to bleep me out for your podcast. I apologize.
I definitely won't.
It's well, be careful. You know me. I swear like a sailor. It's awful. It's like I don't want to talk to it, like, because it does the wrong thing. And all I do is, like, you know me, I'm like already impatient as it is. I start getting mad with it. I'm like, why am I getting mad at this thing? It doesn't understand anything I'm talking about. Anyway, as a human being, we have multiple things. I believe that there's this thing called a presentation layer for most of us who can see. I know that there are folks who are blind and have color differences. All that kind of stuff is obviously an issue. But as long as there's a presentation layer, then I think we can have this discussion about how does AI manipulate and deliver that presentation layer. I don't think we need the AI to necessarily create the presentation layers. I wonder how AI is going to deliver that presentation layer. That I think the AI would be really good at, but the creation of it, I think the human needs to be still driving it and dealing with it. Because if the human's not doing it for other humans, if you have an AI trying to build things just for people without the human's involvement, that's just make agents talking to agents. Who cares? Like, nobody cares anymore. There's no presentation layer for that. So I believe there's a presentation layer no matter what going forward. And as long as there's a presentation layer, whether it's in VR, augmented reality, or on an iPad, on a phone, on a refrigerator, or whatever glass presentation you've got, there's going to be an interesting way of assembling all this content and things that has been an exercise for design for hundreds of years since the Gutenberg press and before, that is still going to be relevant. And the thing I'm trying to build is to at least get that structure into a spot where the AI can manipulate it with a human driving that exercise. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of like where I'm going with that.
I think if you get this right, this is going to be amazing. Like,
well, I don't want. It's not about me getting it right. I've gotten it to a certain point, and now I'm about to open source it, I think, and I want the world to help us get it right. And by doing it that way, then prior art, there's all kinds of things that it's going to opens a genie in the bottle kind of effect. At the same time, though, it levels the playing field in a way that like I said, what I'm seeing with, like, you know, Cursor and Claude and Lovable and OpenAI and Anthropic and all these folks, it's just like they're making decisions that it's like, did they not watch what happened over the past 20 years? Like, why are they making the same stupid decisions that we've made before? This has got to stop.
well, now you tell us which ones. What do you see? Tell us.
Oh, God. Well, so there's the messaging and the marketing. So on the AI side, there's the blending of the streams that's inappropriate, in my opinion. So and you can tell me what your opinion of this is too, by the way. I don't want to be giving speeches. AI has been marketed as AI, which is wrong. It's not intelligence. This is not even, if you believe AI is anything remotely like a human, then you have a really low opinion of human beings. I'm sorry. It's like, you know, either you don't have kids or whatever, but humans are very complicated systems. And at best, what AI is it's really good at pattern matching. Like, it's and pattern matching, and pattern matching at a scope that's massively more so than what we can do in a single task. But it does it at the expense of lots of energy. But is AI, does it deal with emotional intelligence? Is there musical intelligence? Is there physical intelligence? Is there any number of types of intelligence that human beings also have as part of our systems and part of how we are? AI is good at the one piece, and it looks like it's doing things. So first off, AI is mislabeled. Stop calling it intelligence, in my opinion. Stop saying it's going to end the world. AI will not end the world unless you connect it to systems that allow digital systems to be manipulated. If you don't want to set off the nuclear codes, don't put the nuclear codes online. It's like it's not going to magically figure out how to, like, you know, break into the NSA or whatever these systems are, and then it has to be able to do that. So the bank systems and the security systems, they all need to be updated. The reason why we're at risk with AI is because we have 100 years of really badly built systems by people who have taken too many shortcuts when they should not have, because of the almighty dollar, you know, corporate kind of thing. That's the truth. It's like, AI is not going to blow us up just because. So that part drives me a little bit batty, that people talk about it as if it's going to, like, you know, set off the nuclear war, and we can do that if it's connected to the missiles. So that's that out of the way. When we talk about AI that we're seeing now, there's three pieces of it, and I think the three pieces need to be distinguished better by Lovable and Claude and Anthropic and these folks. The first piece is the notion of the generative part. That's the part that people, I think, are most fascinated by. So the generative part is more, when I say the generative part, I mean more like image generation when you see images being made. If you look at how all that stuff is done, I mean, I remember being at Adobe when we were messing with this stuff 20 years ago, when it was still really hard to do because it was super expensive and took a long time. It's like taking noise patterns and all kinds of stuff and then kind of mixing the pixels over and over and over based on other patterns it has. It's similar to language until it starts to have an image form and appear. And it does these kinds of things. And each image can be different because the noise pattern it started with was a different noise pattern. If it was the same one, it would make the same image. So there's this whole generative thing, which is really interesting, has a lot of issues and problems. We've seen all the issues with artists, having their work copied, stolen and swiped. Musicians are suffering from this as well too, with the way, because music effectively is just patterns, just like images and pixels. They're the same thing functionally. So there's the generative part. I don't know what to do about that part. I think that part is interesting, but I think the folks who are doing it need to be slapped or punched in the nose faster than they are being punched in the nose. They're allowed to do things that we should have learned from the lessons from the past. Like when we let Google get away with image search because it was a new way of doing it, we broke all these other systems because Google was not paying taxes or not paying their fair share of what they're taking away when they did that.
Yeah,
that's one piece. I don't know what to do with that. I've got a lot of opinions, but that's not my area. It is my area of expertise, but I'm not going to dive into it. The second piece is the part that I find the most useful and interesting, and that's the part that processes human language, whether it be spoken or typed, into instructions. That's the part that I think is the most interesting, is how do you take human input? And I'm with Selden, I've got it, we've got it so we can sketch and start to have it build components from the sketch and things like that. So how do you take what a human's doing, whether they type it, speak it, draw it, or whatever, or make artifacts, such that the computer can assemble those as instructions to do something. Up until now, we've typed. You type in commands. Everything you do on a Mac, when you point and click, is a kind of input and a command, effectively. And then when multi-touch comes around, you've got multiple ways of doing inputs. Now we've got this way of talking to the computer, and actually it can process in interesting ways. To do that processing, the training model needs to be all of the internet. You do need the training model because it needs to understand all the languages and all the nuances and all that kind of stuff. Then the third part is the part that is, I don't know how to describe this. It's kind of a mixture of generative, but it's more of a knowledge-based concept. So you get the concept like RAG, and you get all these other pieces coming into play, where, where the AI has to find answers and find the right patterns that you mark as, yes, that is a good solution. It doesn't always have to be the solution, but it has to be a good solution or an acceptable solution, or all these kinds of stuff. It's not generative. Generative is pure, like, make stuff up. Like, show me like an Eskimo husky on Mars drinking a latte. Like, that's generative. This one is the one where, because the generative part is blended with the understanding English part, you get this weird amalgamation of just random stuff that feels good and is not good at the same time. Partly that's because the models in the middle are general purpose. They're trying to be like everything. They want to understand the entire knowledge of the data, so you can ask it anything and it can generate an answer for you based on anything. I think that's wrong. I think the generative part should be dealt with on its own, and the asking part needs to be dealt with on its own. And this part in the middle needs more expertise, and it needs more cleaner data. It needs more cleaner systems. So like with Selden, it doesn't exist on the internet. So part of the issue I'm going to have is I need to have to generate lots of components to generate clean data so that it understands, oh, this is how you actually lay these things out and structure them so that you can actually swap out all the styles, or you can swap out all the controls, and they do these things. Right now, it's got the data of the internet, which is filled with massive amounts of shitty examples about how to do this stuff, quite frankly. It's got all the good stuff mixed in with all the bad stuff. And this is where you get into things like, lawyers and doctors and architect information bases, databases, and things like that. Those things need to be extracted out of the general model, and they need to build their own models that are about expertise. Like, expertise needs to be a thing with AI. You don't want all the bullshit, in my opinion. And so that is going to become the part that's messy in the middle, and then that's going to be the part that's going to need. But the current companies are blending things in such a way that they're not making this clear, and then the UIs and the interfaces that they're making to control these things are not even attempting to distinguish generative from like these pieces in the middle from I want to talk to it. How do I talk to it and do things? And I'm controlling it with this new interface. You know, like. Have you been using Cursor? Have you done any of the building with like Anthropic or Claude or anything like that?
I definitely have dabbled with it. I think that I went through a phase where I dug heavily into all the tools and was just like, need to understand all of the tools. And I played with a lot of different tools. And now I have a set of things that I'm using frequently. But I don't adamantly right now use Cursor. But
even with the other tools, so one of the things about AI stuff is you need like to give it context.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
It's like, so in like Cursor, I'm constantly having to like feed it context, where what I want is, I don't want a system where I've got a volume, like a volume label. As somebody who's doing this professionally, I need like a mixing table. I need to slide that up and slide this down. It's like, okay, here's the context. Ignore this. Pay attention to this. I want to be able to like highlight all these things in my code base. Like, okay, see this folder? All I want you to do is touch this. Stop looking at all other things. Stop doing all this crazy shit. And I feel like the people who are building these things think that they can solve everything rather than just solving the tasks that are good. If you treat the AI part like it's a unique way of human instruction, whether it be, again, voice, text, drawing, whatever, now you can actually hone in and get into how you want to provide all the things that the human needs to control. You know, you don't. Sure, you can have a volume lever, but that's not what people really need, especially in a professional setting. You need to like have it like this thing here. Do not touch this. Ignore this. I don't want you to try to reason with it. Blah blah blah. So you need those pieces, but we're just treating this like a big chat interface window. Like everything's just like I talk to it, and you know. I don't know about you, but when I talk to people, when I was managing teams, talking to people was like the last thing I wanted to do about how to get stuff done. Like, if I can't explain it to people, then how do you expect a machine to figure this out? Like, this is, I don't know. This thing is even more autistic than the most autistic, kid I've ever worked with. In a good way, and sometimes, and in a bad way, in other times, where it's just like, yeah. Anyway, so that's another rant. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I think that there's, something fascinating about, you saying everyone's creating a chat bot, but I think to me the most interesting and unique things of application of AI is that when it can do these detailed tasks that and its ability to think about the interface in a way that's beyond just the dialogue that you have with it, it's verbally. But also just every time you open up an interface now, if we choose to, it could be dynamic based on who I am in that moment. Versus right now, like I go to Instagram, for example, I open it up and it has no idea what headspace I'm in or what I need, right? And so it just shows me everything versus an interface that can tailor itself more thoughtfully because of its tool, like integrating the information about me on the back end.
Right.
And so that's what I'm excited about, is not just necessarily the application of me talking to AI and it giving me an answer, but its impact on interfaces itself.
Right, but that is what I mean by delivering the interface or delivering the experience versus creating it. So if the AI delivers, so the AI can deliver it because it can fine tune these things. But in order to deliver it, it needs levers. That's the thing that I think that people making these tools are forgetting. It's like we have a mixing table professionally for sound, even in the digital realm, for a reason. The way sound works is you need to, like, in the context of what kind of, is it a jazz piece? Is it a hard rock piece? There's all these things that go into like how you want to mix based on the context of what you're doing. And right now we're just given like these knobs. The person creating the experience is given just a knob or just a box. And to your point, they need to be able to like, okay, here's Olivia. She's going to have controls about, where she's at. She'll provide some signals about where she's at. So therefore, these knobs on this end need to be moved into this situation so that as you assemble this thing and deliver it to Olivia, it's going to resonate properly. Right now, all we have is a chat window with the knob so that what we deliver to you is quite frankly, just the same as anything else. It has inklings of being unique and deliver and cater to you. But right now, the person making it doesn't have the knobs and levers they need. And if we just let the AI, like I said, if we just let the AI do that on its own, then why do we need even you? The AI can just talk to your AI and then you can just bypass all that, right? Who cares? Because if you believe that the AI is going to deliver a human experience to you when it's not a human, I just don't see that playing out the way people. I don't see that playing out the way that we want it to. It's. I think it's got a lot of pitfalls that are just going to make things worse. Yeah. My only thing there is like with Twitter. When I was at Twitter, we were like, we're the free speech wing of the free speech party. Yeah, how well did that turn out? Yeah, not very well. It turns out when you let people just like do whatever they want, and the system doesn't really try to control things, all the bad actors take over the system, and then pretty soon everything turns to shit.
Yeah.
So,
I do think that the fear around AI, though, going back to that, is kind of revolving around that concept that it will do the things that humans are doing and it takes the jobs away. I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
It will take the jobs away that didn't need to be jobs. Is kind of like where I'm going with that. They needed to be jobs because we didn't have the mechanisms or tools to do them in a way that without humans. You can go through any industry, whether it be farming, where we had people picking, we still have in some places people literally walking through the fields and picking the fruit or picking whatever. And in some places there's like tractors that can just do that kind of thing. And so all those jobs were removed. So there's a balance there between like what it does, but at scale, it's the machines. Same goes for like publishing in what newspapers. The whole thing when it went digital got rid of a whole bunch of jobs, but it opened up a whole nother set of jobs. In our business, we have people doing tasks poorly, sometimes well, or just good enough that quite frankly, it would be better off just to have the machine do it. And again, what I mean by that is the mechanics of the drawing, not the intent behind it or the design behind it. So production level jobs will likely go away. People who are there to literally produce things, like if you're at a clothing shop, people who are sewing, some of it can be done by robots. Like, do you really need a person breaking their back, 8 hours a day, for very little money doing that kind of thing when we should do is figure out what those jobs look like. It's going to suck and it's going to be not pleasant, just like it hasn't been pleasant in the past. Part of what I'm trying to do now is by opening up and giving it out there and putting it out there in such a way, I'm hoping that it's not in control of by a very small set of people. So my hope there is that people can figure out what to do with it, and that in doing so, they'll find new jobs to make. But if you're doing a job where you use your brain, I think, and by using your brain, I mean using your brain meaningfully. Like if you were a session music player who was asked to come in and lay down a track, and when you went in there, they said, "Okay, I need you to play like a Prince style, funk bass line." They don't tell you the notes. They don't give you like a sheet of music note. They say that, and you can do that. That's using your brain. If you were a player that came in and just literally were given a sheet of music and all you had to do was play the music, well, that's not using your brain because you're just doing mechanics at that point. That's the thing I think the designers have to be aware of, is like if you're sitting there just drawing stuff and checking boxes off and you're kind of making relevant interfaces, but you're just we complain that all the UIs look the same now, right? They all kind of do. So that kind of tells us that we need to all move on to the next thing. Mm-hmm. And I think to your point, the next thing is going to be things like delivery of unique experiences. I am super interested to see what happens with augmented reality stuff. I've always been fascinated by 3D and all that kind of thing. I'm fascinated what agent interfaces look like, where you have an agent delivering to you something that you as a human can consume the way you want to. Agent to agent interfaces are not interesting because there's no need for them. That's just like a bank system talking to another bank system. There's no UI there. They just talk to each other and transact money. So it's going to change. It's going to be painful, but the sooner somebody recognizes the part of the job where they use their brain and they focus in on, okay, what does that mean? How do I use AI to make that stronger, better? How do I get better? I think that's the beginning of what that journey is going to look like. And if you sit and get stuck in your own ways of wanting to make boxes and arrows, you're in for a world of hurt. And there's no way to sugarcoat that. You know, I'm old enough to know now that if I was in that position, if I was in a position where that was going to happen to me at this time in my life, that would suck. I became a designer originally, though. I think I've told you this before. I became a designer because I don't like 9-to-5 jobs. As a designer, you get to make and create things until the day you die. That's kind of like the fun part of being a designer. It's like it's not a paper pushing, check the boxes kind of gig. You can do it up, like Wim Krauvel, one of my favorite typographers, who was Dutch. He passed away 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, but he was doing type up until he was like, I don't know, 95. He died when he was like 95, I think. He was making stuff his whole life. So that's the whole point. But yeah, I don't have any good advice right now. Use your brain. If you can use your brain, AI is not a human. Actually, here's a tip for you and your audience. I tell this to people all the time now. This is just to see what this. You should do this to see how it feels to you. Spend a week doing nothing. Well, spend a week in your AI tools. Do not use the word you. Do not ask it nicely. Don't say please. Like, don't talk to it like a person. Just do commands and do the implied you. So instead of saying like, you need to make a plan, just say make a plan. Instead of saying like, just talk to it without the human kind of language, and see what it does to you and how you perceive it, because it'll keep talking to you like, well, I did this and I did that, and you're like, I don't care, you're not a person. Like, it's like, I'm not going to offend you. It's just a fucking machine. It's like,
it feels like you are offending it, though.
That's all on you. That's all projection. But see, so take a week and try it, at least like for a week, maybe even a month if you can pull it off, because it will help you, I think, realize and recognize that this is the coolest new tool that you've had in a long time. Yeah. And it's not a threatening, it's not like it's going to steal your wife or husband. It's like, it's a tool. And I think that people who fall in love with these AI, all these stories about people who fall in love with these things, like, it's because they project so much and they just desperately want to have a conversation. It's like, stop treating this like, a machine. You can talk to your dog like they're human. My dog is like, he's a total doofus. It's great. I talk to him like he's a person all the time. And I still know he's a dog. It's like, I don't know why we have these conversations with these AIs. Like, it's a machine. It's not human. So what's going on here? But yeah, try that exercise. I think it's a fascinating, it's a way of looking on all these things in a fascinating and kind of unique way.
I will definitely try that. And I agree that it is a powerful tool to use. I often just say, in the beginning when AI came out, I would say it's a calculator. It's the new calculator. It helps me not to do math, but it helps me do so many other things. Mm-hmm. And I use it as part of my life now, and I can't imagine not having it.
Yeah.
Like, it's ingrained now, like a calculator would be in school for me to do my homework in math. So for me, I find new use cases for it every day practically. Yeah.
Again, if you treat it like a tool, then what's interesting there is if you treat it like a tool, you start to see what you can do, not what it can do. Mm-hmm. And that's the important part, I think, that people need to get through. And more importantly, that's the part that we need to be communicating to all the folks who are building these systems. Like, I don't care that they want me to, like, the whole agent having a personality. Like when OpenAI did that whole, it's either a male voice or a female voice, and it talks to you and it picks up. It's like, I wish they would stop that. Like, that is not making this better. That's just making it worse. I understand why they're doing it. I understand why it's interesting, but it's too soon. Like, get the thing to work like a tool so that we all understand what we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. And because tools enhance and improve humans. We use tools all the time, whether it be something as simple as a fork and a knife, or drills and hammers and all kinds. We use tools as human beings. They are magnificently empowering because the human's in charge. And we need to start treating these things like a tool first and get through that phase before we start getting to the next phase, which is, what does it mean to be human, given that this thing can behave a lot like a human? Because if you think of it as a tool first, you have a better shot of answering that question. But if you think it's a human first, I think you're down a rabbit hole that is not healthy at all. Yeah. There's all kinds of bad things down that path. In the same way, like, Twitter, free speech wing of the free speech party, great. Now that we have free speech for everybody, the thing's a cesspool because all the bad actors are ruining it for everybody else.
Yeah. There's so much to what you're saying, and I want to see if we could shift a little bit, because
Okay.
I'm running low on time now, and honestly, I could talk to you about this for another hour.
Well, we can do another session sometime if you ever want.
We might have to. I think there's so much meat in this, but let's just give the audience maybe just like a quick top 5 takeaways that you would say about AI. If you're in design right now, what can you start to do to make position yourself in this new world that you're seeing happen?
So I think the first thing is actually going back to what you said at the very beginning of this conversation. Where do you want to be in 5, 10, 20, 30 years? Get some clarity about what you think your life as a designer is going to look like, or where you want to be in the future. Don't worry about the tools and that kind of stuff. Get that part answered first. And if it does align with, like I said, either the business, more branding, more product side of the design fence, or the research, user experience sides of finance, if it aligns with those, then great, you have some direction. If it doesn't, start to tease out, where do you think it might be, or how can you discover which direction it might go? And it's not that you can't do both. You can try to do both if you want to. You can be whatever you want to. Anybody can do that. But what you want to then do is find that direction and find yourself some clarity, some of the rules that you talk about making for yourself, and then see how you would use the tool to clarify or dive into that topic. Because now you're in control of the AI. You're not just like, oh, I got to learn this AI thing. What does it mean? Well, it means a lot. Like there's all kinds. Like I said, they blended everything together. So there's too many things that you can do it. But if you find some clarity, that'd be the first thing. So find out what you want to do, and then how will you use AI to clarify that aspect of the life that you want to be in 5 to 10 years. I think another key takeaway is for designers specifically, I think the rubber's about to hit the road with what I would call mechanics. Mechanics are the details of a system or a machine and how it behaves and works. If you want to be invested in mechanics and you're not deeper into code or to frameworks, things like that, you need to have a conversation with yourself about, are you actually interested in this? Because you will have to dive into that aspect finally. It's not about being a coder or an engineer, but you will have to understand the level of that far deeper if you are interested in mechanics. So I don't know a good way to describe that, but I'll leave that one there as it is, because that you could go. I could talk all night about that one. A third piece I would say is it's going to change. It's going to change, and that's part of being human and part of being alive. The sooner you come to grips with that, the sooner you come to grips with that it's going to change, the sooner you can move on to what that means for you. The more you badmouth it or say it's not fair or think it's like a joke, or the more you do that, all you do is the more you resist, the more it persists. It's like that concept. Mm-hmm. The more you resist it, you're making it persist longer. So don't give it that energy. Like, own it, know it's going to happen, and then give that energy back to yourself and figure out how you want to deal with it. But it's going to change, and that's just the way that life is. You know, that's what technology does to human beings over time. Those are the top three. Another one I would say is kind of like a side note for most designers. This is for the younger ones out there. And and by younger I mean designers that are under 26 years old, you would do yourself a favor by going back and reading books, manuals, whatever you want to say, of the last 30 years of software, if you want to be in digital product design. So when I was getting into this kind of thing, it was like 1990, 1992, etc. I would go back and I would like read all of the work from like Paul Rand in the 1940s or the 50s, or I'd go through and like read Henry Dreyfuss, industrial design books, like all the academic stuff that happened in the past. All of that historical context is going to be useful for you to recognize where this is going to go in the future. Without that, you may waste some time reinventing something that has already been dealt with and solved to your own detriment, because you could be doing something else instead. What do I mean by this? Like if you look at like how desktop publishing software worked, if you've never like understood how Photoshop or PageMaker or Illustrator worked in 1992, you should go watch videos or go read the manuals. I lived through it, so I don't have to. I was lucky enough to live through all that, and then I got to work on all of it. But the historical context of how software has worked from, like, let's say 1978 to now is super useful if you're young and you haven't had that chance to learn those pieces. You've lived through, like, right as the internet kind of came up in a big way, but you lived through both that, digital photography, and mobile. All three of those kind of came together for you. So you probably have 2/3, 75% of it. You may want to go back and learn the other 25% of it, but you don't really need to. I'm literally talking about the younger ones. Go back and learn some context here in history. It will help you with the craft, and it will help you understand kind of like how we got here in terms of like how software works, how the web works, why is there CSS at all, what happened with Sun and Java, like why is there this Java thing, why is Android different than iOS, like all these kinds of things. You don't need to like do it academically, like to write a PhD, but you should just go learn about it, and it will help you, especially because as everything changes into brand new systems, like I said, augmented reality to VR headsets to stuff on your TV to glass surfaces, all that kind of stuff is gonna make the same mistakes that were made before, and the designers who are younger now who can bypass those mistakes will get to the future faster, and we'll
where would
more
you
valuable.
recommend? Where would you recommend to start with that? Like,
One of the best places to start, one of my favorites, is you can go online. It's available as a free PDF. Go back and find the Macintosh Human Interface Guidelines from like 1992 or 1988, like the very first book that was written. Joy Mountford was in charge of the Apple design team, and she had the team that did all the Finder and all that kind of stuff. They built GUIs and things like that. They wrote a book, and you should go read it because it's fascinating. It's like I read the book back when it came out, like 1992 is when I first read it. It was on volume 4 by that point, I think. Read any of them, but you can find it online. It's good. 200 pages of very dry, very boring, very difficult like language.
Right up my alley.
But it's really fascinating. That's like, start there, and then that will open up all kinds of. If that doesn't open your brain, like, holy crap, these people were talking about what back then? We were talking in that book. You'll find paragraphs about like cultural differences, like cultural and class differences that need to be taken into account when you're doing interface design for making desktop applications. This is like 1988, 89 language. And then, by the way, it's also good because you can see where we failed. You can see what didn't happen. People were talking about all kinds of stuff for a long time. Excuse me, let me rephrase that. People were talking about all kinds of stuff for a long time, and you can see where we failed. It's fascinating. Anyway, that'd be my piece of advice there. I don't know if I probably have more, but yeah, who knows?
We may have to set up another conversation, but this was so nice, one, to get to see you and catch up a little bit, because it's been a long time.
Yes, it has.
And you're one of those people in my life who I value deeply, really, truly, because,
thank you.
Yeah. And thank you for this time. And I'm grateful to be able to have this conversation with you, and that everyone else gets to hear this too, because there's so much packed in this. So we will share out, and we'll continue to.
I've been very lucky to see where you've gone and know where you came from. So maybe people in your audience haven't seen that, but it's fascinating to me. First off, I always did these kinds of things with designers because you guys don't realize that it allowed me to get energy. So talking to designers who were like hungry, ready to go crush the world, to do great things, was a way for me to be like, if I could help mentor that, it gave me energy, because I sat in meetings, some very soul crushing meetings with certain things. I was like, what's my life become? Why am I in this meeting talking about this stupid thing? But talking about design and seeing the energy, like, there was a bunch of other folks that I talked to and mentored as well over the years. So I appreciate you thanking me, but I should also thank you, because that's the kind of thing that allowed me to stay in this business as long as I have, is like people like you and other folks that I've talked to that have allowed me kind of like to remember what this is for. Why are we doing this? You can make this happen. And just doing all that kind of stuff was always good. So thank you in return for that. And it has been great to see you and how you've progressed.